Wow, I love my guitar so much. I just wish I could talk with it in some sort of way, communicate with my guitar. Whoa, what's happening? Wow, what happened?
Hello, broski. I am Mr. Guitar, and I just want to say that you are very annoying, and I really don't enjoy being played by you. Your hands are so gross. I mean, how are they so gross? Where do you put those hands? It's really weird. I just want to say that I really hate it.
Alright, broskies. How are you doing? Today I'm going to lose my job because today I'm going to show you how to figure out songs by ear. Nevertheless, please keep watching my videos. I hope you will still need me after this, but yeah, I'm going to bombard you with different approaches, different ways to be able to figure out a song by ear, to make it more, to figure out the chords in an easier way, and just plenty of stuff. Just stick around through the whole video, and I'm very sure at least one of those many tips will help you, guaranteed. So first of all, this is already the start of the video, but I'm going to say to you that you are already a lot better at figuring out songs by ear than you might think. I met quite a few artists that were like, I can't do that, I don't have perfect pitch or anything, but you definitely don't need that. The only thing that you sort of need to be able to do is to be able to hear if something sounds nice or not sounds nice, if something fits or doesn't fit. So yeah, I'm going to prove this to you by first playing a short chord progression, and then I'm one time going to play the right chords on top of them and one time the wrong chords on top of them, and you have to guess which time I played the right or the wrong chords. So let's do that now. This is the song. So that's how the song sounds. Now I'm going to play chords on top of them, and you have to guess if it's right or wrong. Okay, and now I'm going to do it again, and you have to guess if these chords are right or wrong. You might have guessed that the second time I played this it was correct. If not, that's fine. You might just, you might have a bad day, no worries, you will train it as well, but you might have noticed that one time I was playing the wrong chords over the song, and then second time I was playing the right chords over the song, and that's really what you're doing when you're figuring out a song. Especially in the beginning, you won't be able to immediately hear if you're playing the correct thing, but you will hear when you're off, just like you might have just heard. The amount of how long you've played guitar, how long you've played an instrument also really helps with figuring out a song. So that's also something to keep in mind. Even when you're not training to figure out songs by ear, you sort of are, because the better you get at guitar, the better you get at music, the more you listen to music, the better you will be able to find patterns and distinguish notes from each other in a song. Just sometimes you have to give it some time, but I will give you some tips that will help you immediately. Now, first of all, when you approach a song, you want to figure out a song, any genre this works for, I think. Of course, you have some more difficult type of genres to figure out, like jazz can be quite a lot more difficult than a lot of pop songs, but in general, what's most important to do when you want to figure out the chords of a song is first listen to the song. I know it sounds very obvious, but not only listen to it, but try to categorize the song in different parts. A lot of pop songs, a lot of also indie songs, any genre, have like a part A and a part B, sometimes a part C as well. And a lot of times part A is the verses, part B is the chorus, and part A is the verse again, and part B is the chorus. So you have these, a lot of times chord progressions just repeat themselves. You have also songs that only have 3 chords that repeat themselves the whole time. So it's important to first distinguish within a song, because otherwise a song can be seen as quite difficult to figure out. All these chords, all these notes, but once you find out that the song only has a couple of chords and only 2 chord progressions a lot of times, you only have to figure out like 20 seconds sometimes of a song to be able to play the whole song. That's important to keep in mind. So first, try to distinguish the different parts in the song. You can do that by listening to it. A lot of times the verses have a certain chord progression and the choruses have a certain chord progression. You can distinguish the verses and the chorus because a lot of times the choruses, the lyrics are repeated, and in the verses not so much. also a lot of lyric sites or on online you can distinguish when the verse or the chorus starts. You don't even have to be sure if it's the chorus or verse, but it's important to notice the change in part, so to say, so the change in chord progression or the change in melody. So that's the first thing, just so you have an overview of what you're doing. You have to really take, especially in the beginning, baby steps, so to say, in figuring out a song. So you have to start at the most easy place to start with. So that's first figuring out the parts of the song, and then once you have distinguished the chord progression, which can be the chord progression of the verse, you want to make it easy for yourself as well. You don't want to immediately go about trying to play every chord on the guitar, because there are many chords on the guitar which might make it seem so difficult. But it's not, because I'm now giving you a very, very useful tip. And the tip is that you have to remember that a chord, any chord, exists of a couple of notes. Now that makes it maybe quite difficult to distinguish a chord in a chord progression because it exists of multiple notes. However, every chord has a root note, and the root note is sort of you could say the most important note of the chord. Is a lot of times the bass note of a chord. For example, the root note of a G chord is G. It's really the note that makes the chord a D sharp or D or C sharp. So it's not the note that makes it major or minor a lot of times, but it's the note that makes it's the note that makes the chord the chord, so to say. So for A, the root note is A, etc. It's the main note, so to say, of the chord, the root note. Now this is of huge importance, because what you're then going to do when you want to figure out a chord progression is you're going to look for the root notes of the chords. It sounds maybe difficult, but what I'm basically saying is you're going to look for the bass notes of the chord. Now some of you might say, well, Jens, not always the lowest sounding note or the bass note of a chord is the root note. That's correct, but a lot of times it is, and it does give you a very good indication if you figure it out. So what you're going to do again, you're going to try to find out the bass note of the chord that you're figuring out. Of course, the chord progression can exist of multiple chords. Let's say ours exists of 4, it's this one. Second chord, third chord, fourth chord. So 4 chord progression, you will find it a lot. And now we're going to try to figure out the first chord. And what's very useful to do when you want to figure out any chord of a chord progression is play the song that you want to figure out at a lower speed. You can then a lot of times you can hear the note a lot better, the separate notes as well. Not always, but that can really help. You do have to use YouTube for this, because a lot of programs, when you slow down, the song also lowers in pitch, so you get like this effect, like a slow motion. The sound drops, the frequency drop. But YouTube has a very nice system. The pitch stays the same when you slow down the song on YouTube, so that's very useful figuring out a song. But you're going to try to find out the bass note of the chord, which is a lot of times the root note. And you can do that by not trying to play chords immediately, because there are so many chords that's just too much, broski. You have to start simple. So you start off with the bass notes. And you can figure out the bass notes by listening to the guitar or the piano. However, piano uses a lot of times not so much the root note as the bass note, but the bass guitar is also a really good indication of which chord is being played. A lot of times when the bassist is playing an A note as the main note in his bass line, something like, then it's very likely that this A that I'm playing is the chord that's being played. Now if it's a major or minor, we will get into that. So before I'm going to dig deeper into this, it's important to know a bit about chords on the E and the A string, so to say. Know that this is an A and stuff like that, that every fret has a note, of course. I also have a video on this if you want to check that out. It can be quite useful, but yeah, it's useful to know that each fret on the E and the A string have a note, and that this is an F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. And for the A, it's A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Now, if you don't know this, that's fine as well. You can also just look at what I'm doing with my hands and try out different finger positionings, which I'm going to explain, but some knowledge on how the notes work on the E and the A string is very useful. And what I mean by that is basically knowing, being able to figure out what note this is. This is a G, and you can know this by starting from the E string and then counting upwards, so to say. So F, F sharp, G. That's a G note. So that's useful information. I have a video on this as well. If you don't know this, then I truly recommend you to learn this. There are lots of videos probably online about this as well, besides mine. But that's some knowledge that can be very useful for the thing that I'm now going to explain to you. Let's listen to the first chord of the chord progression. I'm going to play it real quick, just because of course, when you're doing this on YouTube or Spotify, you can repeat the chord. So this is the first chord. Now you can hear the chord, but what note is being played? Good one, good question. That's what we're going to try to figure out. And again, we're going to try out some bass notes. Mainly focus on the E and the A string when you want to figure out a chord. So try to play the notes, any of these notes, and try to see if it fits the chord very well. Let's try this. That's off. Not so it's off, right? You can. We found the note. It's an A note over here. Now there are a few things that can happen. We now know that this A note that we figured out is in the chord, but we're not sure if it's then an A major or minor, because I'm going to show you something. This one fits as well, right? And this one too. And that's because a chord consists of 3 notes, so there are 3 notes, 3 bass notes, so to say, that fit well within the chord. And so we found this one fits nice, this one fits nice, and this one. So how do we know if it's like an A or like a C sharp minor, this is a C sharp, or like an E or an E minor? Well, trial and error, just as always. So let's say you want to check if it's a C sharp minor. It's not. Not really. So we figured out that the C sharp note, this one, fits nice within the chord. And then we're going to try to play the chord of that note. So this is a C sharp. Now we're going to try to play a C sharp major. Doesn't sound nice, right? C sharp minor. Also a bit off, You can do that for the E as well that we found. Let's see. No, it doesn't work. Now let's do it with the A. A minor. That's off. Let's try an A major. No. If my looper pedal works, it's fine. It works, right? It's the same chord. You have to listen to if there's a lot of tension or not. And when we tried the A major, we didn't get that much tension. Another tip, very useful as well. As I said, you mainly want to listen to the bass notes of the chords that you're hearing, right? And you can, a lot of speakers, you can just simply turn up the bass. That helps, and you can hear the bass better. Bass guitars or the bass notes are a lot of times a very good indication of the root note of the chord. A lot of times the bass notes of a bass guitar within the chord fit well within the chord, so that's a good indication. What's also an important tip is that for a lot of music is recorded in stereo, which means that that your left ear plug, if you're listening with headphones or with an earphones, is playing, like sometimes the left earphone is playing the drums and the right earphone is channeling the guitars and the bass. So that's something to look out for as well. When you want to focus on the guitar chords or on the bass notes, try to focus on those notes in your ear by choosing the earphone that's playing those instruments. It's not always like that. Sometimes just both channels, so to say, send out the same signal, send out the same sound, but a lot of times, especially for example on the Beatles, you will find this a lot, that the left ear you will hear the drums and the bass, and the right ear you will hear the guitar, or another way around. So that's something to look out for as well. So yeah, again, what we're doing, we're listening to a chord very closely, a chord of the chord progression, and we're trying to fit bass notes on top of that. and the bass notes that sound nice with the chords you're going to test. And you can test those notes, so to say, by trying to play a major or minor chord of them. So let's say if you find a B note that fits nice within a chord that you're hearing, you're going to play a B major, B minor. If they don't fit, try another one of the bass notes that fit well and you might find the chord. And I can hear some of you thinking, well, Jens, you also have sometimes a diminished chord, which, you know, is a bit difficult when you simply want to play a major or minor chord. That's true, but I first now want to give you a bit of the basics. I also recommend you to first start off with figuring more easier songs out by ear. You don't immediately want to do a difficult jazz song because that will be quite difficult in the beginning. Try to find some easy songs that you can practice on, and you will get better at figuring out also more difficult chords. Now, of course, if you can't find a chord that fits nice and it sounds a bit jazzy, so to say, the chord sounds a bit like this tension, like this, you might have to look into some diminished chords and see if those work. Now, depending on the genre, like on my channel I do a lot of bedroom pop, indie music, and they use a lot of major 7 chords and minor 7 chords and dominant 7s as well. And there are a couple of ways to figure those out. I might make a separate video on it, but again, you first need to figure out if it's a major or minor, and then you can try out some add-ons like minor 7s, minor 9s, but you might not have to worry about that if the song you're playing in is like if the genre you're playing in doesn't use those type of chords a lot. And that flows into my second very important tip, and that's when you want to figure out a song, look into the artist that you want to figure out, or look into the genre, so to say. You know, when you're playing blues, you might expect some dominant 7 chords like these. When you're playing indie, you might expect major 7 chords. And this might sound a bit vague if those chords are not familiar with you, but what I'm trying to say is that when you want to figure out a song by an artist, try to find songs that somebody else already figured out and did a good job at, because a lot of guitarists have a sort of playing style. They don't always do stuff randomly, so that already helps you if you have some knowledge on what chords an artist uses a lot or what key an artist plays in a lot. That already sort of narrows the process for you. You don't have to try every single note. You might already have an indication of what you can expect. Now, a classic example of that is Mac DeMarco. It's like an artist I've done many guitar lessons on, so I know a bit how he plays. He always plays a G chord like this. Up until, he only plays a few strings, always open, and he always uses the capo. That information that I then have, because I looked up some other songs of him, already helped me a lot in figuring out his songs. So if you find a song that you wanted to figure out by ear, look into other songs by the artist and see how he plays those other songs, because that can give you a very clear indication what type of chords you can expect. If you know that an artist almost always only uses barré chords, it might be a good start when you want to figure out the song to start off with. Barré chords, or bar chords they're called, not barré, bar chords. So looking into the play style of the songwriter of the song already helps out with sort of narrowing down your view, not having to try every note on the guitar. The second tip related to that, which is maybe even more useful, is making use of the notes of a scale. And I have quite a few videos on music theory. Check them out. They can help tremendously in figuring out songs by ear. At least it helped me a lot, because music theory sort of explains what you can expect within a key, within a chord progression. So, for example, in our example, we had this A chord to begin with. Now, sometimes, not always, the first chord is being played, or the last chord is sort of the key of the song, and that sort of dictates almost, not always, but a lot of times, what notes you will expect. If you're not too familiar with scales and stuff, the idea is that the chord progression, in a lot of times, is in a certain key. So this one is in A major. Now, A major only exists of a couple of notes, and it's very likely that those notes that the A major scale exists of will be used in the chord progression. So this works for almost any song. If you figured out a song, you figured out it's in G major, you can expect that a lot of the notes, a lot of the chords that you will find fit within the G major scale. I have a very, in my opinion, quite clear video on how this works and how you can figure out which chords fit within a certain key. So check it out, I'll link it in the description. But that's something that you can make use of when figuring out a song. Because in our example, the first chord was an A. Now, if you're familiar with the key of A, you might know that it exists of these notes: an A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Now, that really already helps me, because then I know that, oh well, the next chords might just be one of those notes. It's very likely even that it's a C sharp minor, or a B, or a D, or E, or F sharp, or G sharp. So if we listen to the song, it's this chord. So we can try the notes of the A major scale. No, it's not that one, right? So now it's the next one. We got it correct. So that's the thing is that, again, sort of music theory, sort of the knowing the scale already gives you an indication of what you can expect next, because a lot of, like, any song really follows a sort of logical structure. Of course you have songs that try to flow out of this, of a key, you know, of what you would expect, but even jazz in general terms always follows a clear key. So with any music style, I think music theory can help you a lot with figuring out a song, because you can know what to expect. You will also, once you dig deeper into chord progressions, there are some, you know, very famous chord progressions that you will find in many songs, and the more you figure out songs, the better you will be able to distinguish these type of chord progressions. Like a chord progression like this, very famously used, a 1-4-5 chord progression used in many songs. The more you practice figuring out chords, the more you will notice these chord progressions that are used a lot, and the better you will be able to figure them out the next time. Because figuring out chords, it won't always be figuring out songs by bass notes the whole time. The more you do it, the more easy it will become. You know, at a certain point you'll just be able to play songs sometimes immediately without perfect pitch. You know, I couldn't. I in the beginning it took me a long time to figure out songs, but the more you do it, now sometimes I can just figure out the song by only listening to it once. And I'm not doing it to brag, but most of the time those are quite easy songs, but I'm just trying to prove my point that doing it, you know, practice helps with getting better at it, which is quite logical, but just a tip. Okay, so looking at figuring out the bass notes technique, we can call it, looking at the playstyle of the artist, using music theory, or really using the scale of the song, is a useful tip. And the fourth tip, so to say, let's make it 4, is using external sources. That sounds a bit vague, but what I'm trying to say, when you want to figure out a song, you can also look up the song online, you know, the chords of the song, or look at the live performance. Now I first want to talk about looking at the live performance. When you want to figure out a song, how an artist plays the chords, when you want to figure out the chord progression, look online if there's a live performance of them playing it, because a lot of times you can see where the hands are of the guitarist, and that can help you so much in figuring out the notes. You know, if you hear a chord like this, it's an E major, then and you see the hands of the guitarist over here, you know, somewhere. Sometimes it's vague, but even if you see something like this, you know that he's not playing an open chord. That already helps you in narrowing down the possibilities of which chord is being played. Now I think that's everything I wanted to say, so just to give a quick recap of what you have to do when you want to figure out a song: listen to the bass notes, test if those bass notes work along with the chord that you're hearing, so if it's a major or minor, then use the playstyle of the artist, look into different other songs of the artist and try to see how he played or she played those chords, how he or she plays the guitar in other songs. The third tip, look at live performances. They can be of a huge help. Look at the fingers of the guitarist. Give yourself some time. It might be difficult in the beginning, but it will get easier and easier. Just give it some time. You don't have to figure out the song in a day. You can just get back to it a couple of times. Listen to music a lot in a more analyzing way, so to say. Try to listen to music and try to figure out when the chord changes are happening, when the chord progressions are changing. That can be of a huge help as well. Also try to still keep on listening music for fun, of course. It should still be fun, of course. So that's really everything I wanted to say. Now, if you want to figure out a song together, if you want some help, follow me on Twitch. Sometimes we figure out a song there together, which is nice. Then you can see how it goes from start to finish, and I can help you out if you have any questions. Also follow me on Instagram. My mom says it's really cool, so that's enough reason to do that, I think. And that's really everything I wanted to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you the next time.